Hi, my name is Max from Downforce Recordings, and today I want to talk to you about how to set up a professional lighting setup for your band, run it with a DAW, just like your backing tracks, and how to visualize it from home so you don't have to have the lights at home while you're programming it. And this is the show that I did. So before we get into the video, I have to say a few things. I'm an audio professional, not a lighting professional, so I will fumble around with terms that might be like slightly off, but that's just how it's gonna be. And this video will be longer. I have some points that I want to touch on, but I don't have a complete script for it, so I will be rambling along a little bit. So a little backstory why I chose the things that I chose to do this slideshow. We were touring around just like every other band, and we were like a little disappointed with all the lighting solutions that those venues had, and especially because almost never there was somebody who was controlling the lights. Like the best you could hope for was somebody who was doing the audio part of the show and occasionally hitting the strobe button when breakdown hits or something. So we wanted to have a complete solution for our own lights. We wanted to be completely independent from the tech from the venue. So we didn't want to use their lights or their lighting setup. And we didn't want to have to bring more people to the show. We didn't want to have to bring an exclusive light operator with us who is just there to set up the lights, etc. Because people in most cases are a liability, and especially in the artist scene they're not the most reliable. What we already had was a IEM setup, so we were running backing tracks from a DAW and we were playing, like the whole band was playing to a click. So we already had that figured out, that was set up, and we were cool with it. Now we wanted to have a lighting solution that was like, not too many extra steps. We wanted to integrate it into that IEM setup, and I was kind of tasked with finding a solution for it. And I was wondering, like, why are we not controlling the lights from the DAW? We are controlling, for instance, our campers with MIDI to switch the profiles. Why is there like no obvious solution to just control lights with a DAW? And not many companies are thinking of that apparently. Like I don't know why, but it seems like the lighting world, in the live world, the lighting world is completely separated from the audio world. They are not using the same protocols. They are not using like the same like layouts or anything. It's completely separated. And the only company that I know of that is somewhat providing a solution for that is Enttec. And that's why the obvious choice for somebody who wants to integrate lighting into a DAW is the Enttec DMXIS. But I just found out that they discontinued that and they're working on a new solution called EMU or EMU. But that is not ready yet. They are not distributing the hardware for it, and the software is still in beta, but it's free, so you can try it out if you want to. So we chose DMXIS for us, specifically because they offer a plugin for the DAW. So you don't have to run a different program aside from your DAW. You can just integrate that into the DAW. But before we get into the DAW part and the plugin and everything with DMXIS, we need to look at how lighting in general works. So you have lights, and those are called fixtures, and those get controlled by a protocol that is known as DMX. DMX is the standard protocol, the most simple version of it, and that has 512 channels. Those channels can each trigger one function of the light. For instance, make the light go on and off, make the light go green, red, blue, and other things. So with the DMXs, you have one universe of DMX. A universe is just one set of DMX channels, that is 512. And if you have two universes, you have 1024 channels of DMX. And that can scale up. So with DMX, you are bound to those 512 channels. If you want more than that, you need to switch protocol to something called like ArtNet, where you can control multiple universes. But that is not running over DMX then, that is going over Ethernet. So with DMXs, you have one universe, 512 channels of DMX, and that is what you can control with it. So what you have to think about now is how many lights do you want? Check out the lights that you want and imagine your stage, how you want it to be lit up. And then look up how many DMX channels you actually need. Because with DMXs, as I said, you are limited to 512. You cannot go like above that or beyond that. So you need to think a little bit before you choose your lights. Especially because when there are some lights like LED bars where you have different modes. So they can be controlled with just 5 channels of DMX or 200 channels of DMX. So you can actually like address every LED in that light. And you can control every LED independently, but then you need like 200 channels of DMX just for one LED bar. So you have to calculate that in a little bit. And another tip for stage lighting, most people don't think about how they light up the people. They just look at the stage, how it looks cool. But from my experience, try to get some lights in front so you're actually lighting up the people. Otherwise they are just like, you just see their silhouette and they're completely black. Unless you want that for a special effect, you should think about some lights, putting some lights in the front of the stage. So now you have your lights and you have your DMXs and you installed the software from the Enttec side and you registered your hardware. I think that's what you have to do to get the thing going. And then you are in your DAW and you can use the plugin. So this is the our live setup, like the project file for our live setup. And there are a bunch of channels in here. So we have our MIDI control for our guitarists, for the campers. We have different outputs for different IEMs or different things that we want the music to play through. We have like additional guitars, we have additional effects, all the stuff that we did on the album. We can play back from here. We have a click track, all normal stuff. And here is our light setup. So in the channel, you are putting the plugin on an audio channel, but the plugin is not reacting to the audio unless you want it to. So you put it on an audio channel, and what I did, I put on the audio channel the fully mixed song from the album. So because here are only the backing tracks, so I can hear the full song and program my lights to that. When you open the plugin, first thing you want to do is to address the fixtures that you have and set up the channels for your fixture. So for instance, if you have a fixture that is on the channel 257, you want to go right click on the first channel and then select your fixture. For instance, like here, that moving head. So the channel gets renamed, so you can actually see what every channel is doing. That is the first thing you want to do for all your lights. After you did that, you see something like this. You have all your channels with your fixtures. And now you can control your lights from the DMXs. What I would recommend before you start programming anything, go into the manual of your lights, check all the channels, what channel is what, plug them into the DMXIS and test it out, how it reacts in the real world before you start programming stuff. So you're sure that this channel is red and this channel is white and this channel is the dimmer, whatever. So what Enttec thought about, what I think they thought about when they programmed this, was people are gonna go into the preset manager and set up presets for every lighting that they want to have. Like, for instance, you have the beginning of the song, you want the lights to look like this, and then the verse starts, and then you go to the next preset, and then the lights are supposed to look like that. I use it a little bit differently. I use the presets just for colors. And before we go into that, I want to just circle back to one thing, how to activate those banks. Those are done with MIDI, because you can send MIDI information to the DMXIS plugin. So with one MIDI channel on the channel 15, MIDI channel 15, you set your bank, and for me that's just always bank 0. And with the next MIDI channel you select the preset. And it's a little bit iffy, and that's why my presets are named like they are named. Because the first preset here will be triggered with the first MIDI note. So C-2 is the first MIDI note, and that will trigger blackout. The next one is red, and you have to name them with AA, AB, AC, etc. or 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2 like I did, because they will not stay in the order you put them in, they will just order themselves alphabetically. So for instance, if you don't put like 0, 5 in front of here, this will be suddenly preset number 1, and if you trigger it with that MIDI note, yeah, then your whole setup changes. So you need to do this with AA, AB or 0, 0, 0, 1, etc. to rank order your presets in the order that you want them to. So, and I use those presets just for the colors. So, how do you do that? There's something that I've never seen really explained in any tutorial from Enttec or anybody else. And that is that with macro and channel masks, you can disable and enable channels. So when you are choosing, for instance, from green or green-blue to red, you're only affecting those channels that you didn't mask out before. So if I want to make a new preset, I just go here and, for instance, I don't want those channels affected in my new preset. I just go to macros, disable selected channels, and then I go to preset manager and go to override to save that preset. So whenever I activate that preset, those 4 channels will never be affected. And that's what I did for everything that isn't the color channels. So you see all my presets, no matter which I choose, only the color channels are activated. Everything else is grayed out. And I will come to why in a second. So all I do with those presets is to select the color. Nothing else. And what I also found out, you can actually stack presets. So when I don't want, I choose the color with one preset, and at the same time I activate a different preset where I affect a different channel, for instance my fogger, this one, you can actually do that. Like you can send two different MIDI notes at the same time to the DMXIS and it will affect different channels. Like if I search for when we use the fog, I think this might be it. So this preset just overwrote everything else, but my color channels are still in the same position. So when your preset is just with activated like one channel, it doesn't override all the other channels. And what we can do now with that is to control something like strobes, things that are binary. Like you want the color not to fade from one color to the other. You want red, and then the next second you want green. Or when you want the fog to be on or off, or the strobe to be on or off. But for everything else, like the movements, if you have like moving heads, you want a movement, you want something smooth. Like you don't want moving heads to go from this to this. You want a smooth transition. And the same with the light intensity. You don't want the lights to be just like on and off. You want to have like the ability to ramp them up, ramp them down, etc. to create like more emotion. And that's what you do with the automation channels, because you can automate this plugin just like every other plugin you automate. You just activate the automation and then you select the fader that you want to automate. Like for instance, pan and tilt for my moving heads, I just automated with those 4 channels. With those 8 channels, pan and tilt for 4 different moving heads. So this is how my moving heads are automated. This is all just done with automation. And that is so much easier than trying to like create 100 presets for like different movements and stuff, and then trying to automate them with a MIDI track here, which will be like super inconvenient, and you cannot really figure out which preset is which, and yeah, you might need to do some Excel sheets to figure out which one is which. So this is way easier, and you can do gradual ramping, etc. So this is how I programmed the lights. Now let's go to a visualizer. So with the visualizer, kind of like the same story as with the lighting control software or lighting controller software, whatever. I don't think the audio and the lighting department of the live shows like talk much to each other. So the visualization is kind of done the same way like the lighting is done. Completely different programs, to completely different logic, completely different protocols, names, whatever. They are not thinking in a traditional music way. So all the different visualizers I tried or demoed or whatever, like were either like super hard to set up and really like hard to wrap your head around it, because it's like so different from the audio world. And others are like built like normal CAD programs. And the one from Camsys that I tried was super unstable. So it was really hard to find a solution there. So what I found was a program called L8 for the visualization. And the only obstacle that you really have with that program is that it doesn't understand like pure DMX. You have to transfer the DMX data that comes from your DMXs to ArtNet. And for that you need an ArtNet node. ArtNet node is just like, you can imagine it as a normal Ethernet controller that just puts out DMX signals over Ethernet. So you need an ArtNet node and you plug your DMXs into that ArtNet node. Mine is the Enttec ODE, and it's right now sitting over there next to my router. And I plugged the cable from the DMXIS, which is standing right next to me over there, into that ArtNet node, so L8 can understand what the DMXIS is putting out. When you open up DMXIS, you need to purchase a license. You cannot use this program in any like demo mode or whatever. And I bought the 88 euro license because I wanted to try how much I can get done with it. So this is how my setup looks right now. I have a full stage, all my lights are there, and once it's set up like this, you can also see down here what traffic is coming through. And if you play something back from our show, you see the full visualization. Just to give you a quick introduction into that, when you want to create a new project, you have to be in the starting window and just click on new, and I just call it light tutorial, and then you are in a black box essentially. And what I had some a rough time figuring out was, if you right click on that camera thingy here, you can change the ambient lighting and the gamma, so you can actually see what you're doing, because this is set up for building a light show, so it has to be dark. But this is how you can alter that. The first thing that you want to do in the visualization is build your room. So this whole program is divided into 3 sections. The first one is the overview, where you can actually see how the DMX signals affect your lighting. The second one is the DMX section, where you just configure your lights, nothing else. And the other one is your room, where you just configure your room. So the lights and the room is completely separated. So you can build like one standard room and try out different lighting setups if you just copy the database. Let's go over the basic functions of this. Like here on the left side, you have a list of objects that you have in your room. Right now it's completely empty, and the floor and wall, ceiling, etc. is fixed at the very end of this list. Everything you add to your room will be from 3D model or symbols, because as far as I know, characters, scaffolding and particles, you need a higher license than the CE license, the 88 euro license. And every object that you put in there, like for instance, just take this cube, you can alter its position, rotation and size. So those 3 fields down here, and with C you can reset it to the standard again. With those 3 fields you can alter the objects that you put in there however you want. And if you want to further change the look of the objects, for instance, I put in this case box and I didn't like the color of it because it's kind of brownish. You can always go to Material, unclick Model Default, and then set the color how you want it to. And then you can alter the object however you want. So, and with that, I only want to mention a couple of cool shortcuts that I found in some tutorials, because I think if you know that this is the objects list, this is how you alter the objects, and this is where you find them, like whatever you need. I don't need to explain much more, like everybody can figure that out. The biggest things for me were If I right click on this, okay, and then I can change the illumination, because the standard I think is like that, so it's pretty dark. And the next thing is you can edit your complete room size here, and that you can edit the center of the world by just clicking world center on the object that you want to be your world center, because every new thing that you add in will always be added on your world center, and all the positioning of those objects will relate to your world center point. So if you see -1 on the X position or -2, that is referring to the world center point that you set before by just clicking this. The next shortcut is Control and D to copy the object. And after you copied it, you can just hit Control 1 to copy it to the right side on the X-axis. Camera shortcuts are on the numpad. So 2 is from the front, 5 is from above, 4 from the side, 6 from the other side, and 1 and 3 are from the half side, and 7 and 8 respectively. Like just like a radar, your numpad can just change the camera angle. And if you have things that are on different levels, like for instance you look at this from the front, but you want this item to be exactly on the like right level with the other one, you can flatten the image by pressing 0 on the numpad, so you just see it on 2 axes, so it becomes a 2D model. So back to the stage that I built, to the DMX setup. So in this window you see all the same controls as in the room setup, just this part down here changed. So what you do here is you browse for the light that you have, and those are sorted by category, if it's a moving head or a fixed light, something like a washer or something. And then you pick that. Let's go for instance for something that I have in here, the Thunder Wash, and click apply. Then again it gets added to your world center, and you can move it around with those controls, and pan and tilt and roll them. And when you are trying to put it in place but the light is blinding you, you can click no beam to deactivate the light. And if you want to change the address for the light, the DMX address, you go to DMX input. And what I also found helpful, because this is other than in DMXIS, you can go to the DMXIS website and do your own fixtures. Just edit the fixture or create a completely new one so it fits your light. This is not possible in L8, but what you can do is go to the forum, which is this here, and ask them to add your light. So I requested the Eurolight LED because that is something that we want to use in the future, but it's not yet in the fixture library for L8. And you need to provide the manual where the DMX chart is, so which channel is which, and a gobo image. And then you just like hope for the best that they add it. But if they don't, or you don't want to wait for it, or you don't want to request it, if you have like a higher license, like I think the media license, which is 1,500 euros, then you can add your own fixtures with a fixture constructor. But what I found is like many lights, like the stairwell lights and most of the stuff from Thomann, they are using like similar setups to other lights. It's like always close. So when I was searching for the stairwell wild wash, I just went through browse and the fixed library and searched for 6 channel, because I know it's controlled with 6 channels. It's a fixed light, and there's like dozens of different LED washers in here. So I just went through the list and checked if, go to apply, and then went to DMX input and checked which channel is which. So I just searched for something that was like the Thunderwash is first dimmer, second strobe, 3 is red or rad, and 4 is green and 5 is blue. So as soon as those channels are correct and you add that fixture to the visualizer, it will be correctly addressed by your DMXs. So that's how you can get around the fact that you cannot add your own fixtures in here, and if you want to, you need to request it in the forum. That's how I built the stage and how I added the lights. And as I said, not all the lights that I use are in L8, but I just found ones that were similar in the DMX addresses. So let's let it run for a bit. So now you have your lights controlled by your DAW, completely independent from any lights from the venue, and you can program them from home with L8 without having any of the lights physically next to you. So I hope this video was helpful to you, and I'm sorry that it became a little bit rambly at times, but as I said, it's not fully scripted out. It was kind of like a spontaneous idea to do this video. But nevertheless, I hope that helped you, and if it did, please leave a like and a comment, and see you soon.